After my husband passed away, I bought a new car to start a new life. The very next day, my son came over and took my keys. "You don't need this," he told me with a coldness I had never seen in him before. "I'm driving out of state tomorrow with my wife's family, and I can drop you off at the retirement community on the way." I was stunned. My own son, the person I brought into the world, had just told me I no longer had the right to live my own life. So, as he drove away in my car, I sent him a text message. Just 3 words. "Check the glove compartment." What he saw in there made him stop immediately, slam on the brakes, and understand that he had made the worst mistake of his life. But for you to understand why I did what I did, I need to tell you the whole story from the beginning. My name is Evelyn. I am 65 years old. Until 3 months ago, I was married to the love of my life. 40 years of being together, 40 years of laughter, struggles, and building a family. My husband was a good, hard-working man, the kind you just don't see anymore. When he died, I felt like the world stopped. The house became a mausoleum of memories. Every corner reminded me of him. His coffee mug on the table, his favorite easy chair, the smell of his cologne in the bathroom. And I was left there, in the middle of that deafening silence, wondering what I was going to do with the rest of my life. The first few days were the worst. I did not want to get out of bed. I did not want to eat. I did not want to see anyone. But one morning, while looking at a picture of us two on the beach, smiling, full of life, I heard his voice in my head, almost as if he were standing right behind me. "Evelyn," he would always tell me, "as long as there is air in your lungs, there is a reason to keep going. Do not sit still waiting for life to pass you by. Go out and live it." And he was right. He always was. So I made a decision. I was going to start over. I was not going to stay trapped in this house, living among ghosts and memories. I was going to honor his memory by living, truly living. And for that, I needed mobility. I needed freedom. I needed a car. All those years of marriage, we always drove the same old vehicle, a grey sedan that my husband kept running with pure ingenuity and patience. But that car died with him too. It broke down a week after the funeral, and the mechanic told me fixing it would cost more than buying a new one. So, with the life insurance money and the savings we had put away together, I decided to buy a new car. Not something fancy, not something flashy, just something reliable, something that was mine, something that represented this new chapter of my life. I went to the dealership on a Tuesday morning. The salesman, a kind young man named Stephen, showed me several models, and there I saw it. A silver sedan, gleaming under the showroom lights. It was perfect. Compact, easy to drive, with all the safety features I needed. I got in and felt something I had not felt in months. Hope. Stephen patiently explained everything to me. The braking system, the airbags, the warranty. And when he told me the price, $8,500, I knew I could afford it. I had the money. It was mine. I had earned it with years of work, with sacrifice, with every penny my husband and I saved thinking about our future, a future he would no longer see, but which I was going to live. I signed the papers that same day. The car was registered in my name. Only my name. Evelyn Miller, sole owner. When I drove out of the dealership in my new car, with the smell of fresh upholstery and the engine softly purring, I cried. I cried with joy and sadness at the same time. Joy because I was taking a step forward. Sadness because my husband was not there to see it. But as I drove back home, with the afternoon sun streaming through the windshield, I knew he would be proud of me. I knew this was exactly what he would have wanted me to do. I got home and parked the car in front of the driveway. I sat there for a moment, just looking at it. It was beautiful. It was mine. It was my new beginning. I took the keys, went inside the house, and left them on the kitchen table. Then I called my son, Michael, to tell him the news. I wanted to share this moment with him. I wanted him to know that his mother was okay, that I was being strong, that I was honoring his father's memory in the best way possible. Michael did not answer. I left him a voicemail. Honey, I bought a new car. I'm so excited. Come by when you can so you can see it. I love you. I hung up feeling happy, hoping he would be happy for me, hoping he would understand how important this was to me. I did not know that the next day, my life was going to change forever. I did not know that my own son was about to betray me in the worst way possible. The next day, I woke up early. The sun was just rising, and I was already in the kitchen making coffee. I had plans for that day. I wanted to go to the grocery store, then stop by my friend Sarah's house to show her the car, and maybe, if I felt up to it, drive to the cemetery to visit my husband and tell him everything. Yes, I know. It sounds silly to talk to someone who is no longer there, but it made me feel close to him. It made me feel less lonely. I was finishing my second cup of coffee when I heard a car pull up outside. I looked out the window and saw Michael's vehicle. My heart skipped a beat with joy. He had come. He had gotten my message and come to see me, to see my new car, to share this moment with me. I smiled and hurried toward the door, but when I opened it, that smile froze on my face. Michael was not alone. Beside him was Jessica, his wife, and neither of them was smiling. There was something in their faces, in the way they looked at me, that made me uncomfortable, as if I were a problem they had to solve. Hi, honey, I said, trying to sound cheerful. Jessica, what a surprise to see you both so early. Come in, I just made coffee. Michael did not even respond to my greeting. He walked straight into the house, heading with determined steps toward the kitchen. Jessica followed him, giving me a look I could not decipher. I closed the door and followed them, feeling the joy I had felt moments before turn into a strange sensation in my stomach. Something was not right. In the kitchen, Michael stood in front of the table, looking at the keys to my new car. He picked them up, weighing them in his hands, as if he were evaluating their heft. Mum, he finally said, without looking me in the eyes, I need to talk to you. I crossed my arms, trying to ignore the alarm bell that was starting to ring in my head. Sure, honey, tell me, what is it about? He exchanged a glance with Jessica. She nodded, as if giving him permission to continue. And then Michael spoke. Mum, I heard you bought a car. A new car. Yes, I replied, and my voice sounded more excited than it should have. That is why I called you yesterday. I wanted you to come see it. It is beautiful, Michael. And it makes me feel so free, so— You do not need it, he interrupted me. His words dropped like stones in the middle of the kitchen. I fell silent, not understanding. What? I whispered. Michael finally looked me in the eyes. You do not need a car, Mum. Not at your age. You do not drive as well as you used to. It is dangerous. And besides, it is an unnecessary expense. The maintenance, the insurance, the gas. What for? I felt as if I had been slapped. Michael, I drive perfectly fine. My license is current. I passed all the tests. And besides, it is my money, my decision. He shook his head, as if he were talking to a stubborn child. Mum, this is not about that. It is about being practical. Look, Jessica and I have been talking. Tomorrow we are traveling with her parents, a family trip we have been planning for months. And our car is having problems. Yours is new. It is perfect for the trip. Wait, I said, holding up a hand. You are telling me you came here to ask to borrow my car? Michael let out a short, humorless laugh. I did not come to ask you for anything, Mum. I came to tell you I'm going to use it. And before I could process what was happening, before I could react, he closed his hand around the keys. No, I shouted. Michael, those are my keys. It is my car. But he was already walking toward the door. Jessica followed him, ignoring me completely. Michael, stop. You cannot do this. Give me my keys. He stopped at the threshold of the door and turned to look at me. And what I saw in his eyes broke my heart. There was no love there. There was no respect. There was only impatience and something that looked like contempt. Mum, enough with the drama, he said in a voice so cold it did not sound like my son's. You do not need this car. You do not need any of this. You are living alone in this huge house, clinging to memories. It is not healthy. What are you saying? I whispered. My voice barely came out of my throat. Jessica and I have been talking, Michael continued, and we think it would be better for you to consider moving to a more appropriate place, a retirement community. There are some very good ones in the area. You would be looked after. You would have company. You would not have to worry about anything. And when we get back from the trip, we can go see some. In fact, I can drop you off at one on the way. The world stopped. My son's words echoed in my ears, but I could not believe them. A retirement community. He was telling me to go to a retirement community, to leave my house, my memories, my life, to become a burden that others had to take care of. Michael, I said, and my voice trembled. I do not need a retirement community. I am perfectly fine here. This is my house. He sighed, as if my resistance was just another inconvenience. Mum, do not make this harder than it has to be. We are taking the car. We will be gone for a week. When we get back, we will talk calmly about your situation. And with that, he walked out of the house. Jessica followed him without saying a single word. I ran after them. Michael, no. Please. That car is mine. I bought it with my money. You cannot just take it. But he was already opening the door to my new car, my silver car, my symbol of freedom. Michael, I beg you, I cried. The tears were starting to roll down my cheeks. Do not do this to me. I am your mother. He paused for a second. For a second, I thought he was going to reconsider, that he was going to remember who I was, that he was going to remember everything I had done for him. But then he got into the car, started the engine, and drove away. He just left, with Jessica in the passenger seat, with my keys, with my car, with my dignity. I stood in the middle of the driveway, watching the silver car disappear down the street. The tears were falling freely now. My body was trembling. I could not believe what had just happened. My own son had robbed me. He had humiliated me. He had told me I was no longer useful. I stumbled back into the house. I closed the door and collapsed onto the sofa. And there, in the silent living room full of memories of a life that no longer existed, I cried. I cried for the car. I cried for the betrayal. But most of all, I cried for the son I had just lost. I do not know how long I sat on that sofa, crying. Maybe it was minutes, maybe it was hours. Time ceased to make sense. All I felt was a deep pain in my chest, as if something had broken inside me. And maybe it was true. Maybe something had broken. The image I had of my son, the trust, the unconditional love that a mother always holds for her children, no matter what. But then, In the midst of that emotional darkness, something changed. I stopped crying. I wiped my tears with the back of my hand, and I felt something different growing in my chest. It was not sadness, it was not desperation, it was rage. A cold, calculated rage that was beginning to replace the pain. Because as I sat there, I remembered something important, something Michael did not know, something that was going to change everything. I was not a stupid woman. I had lived 65 years. I had raised a son practically alone while my husband worked double shifts. I had managed a home, a budget, a whole life. And during all those years, I learned something fundamental. You always have to be prepared for the worst. You always have to have a backup plan. When I bought that car, I did not just sign the papers and happily go home. No, I had been careful. I had been smart. Because even though I wanted to believe my son was a good man, even though I wanted to think he would never hurt me, I had seen signs. Small signs that I had ignored because it was easier not to see them. The way Jessica looked at my house, evaluating how much it was worth. The way Michael would ask about his father's life insurance, about my savings, about my plans. Casual comments that now, in retrospect, did not seem so casual. So, after buying the car, I did something else. Something that at the time seemed like an overreaction, almost paranoia. But now I was grateful I had done it. I visited Robert. Robert had been my husband's friend for 30 years. He was a lawyer, a good lawyer. And when I told him I had bought a new car and had certain concerns about my son, he did not judge me. He did not tell me I was being paranoid. He just listened. Evelyn, he told me that day in his office, sitting behind his dark wood desk, if you have doubts, it is better to be prepared. Prevention is not distrust. It is intelligence. And then he helped me. He helped me prepare documents, legal documents that protected my interests, documents that made it clear who the owner of that car was, documents that established clear consequences for anyone who tried to take what was mine. Robert prepared a letter, a notarized letter, with his official seal, his signature, with legal weight. In that letter, everything was explained. That the car was registered solely in my name, that anyone who took it without my explicit written permission would be committing a crime. Vehicle theft. And that I, as the owner, had every right to press criminal charges. Furthermore, Robert attached certified copies of the car's title, the vehicle registration, and my current driver's license, all to prove that I was completely capable and legal to own and drive that vehicle. But that was not all. Robert also prepared another document, one that hurt me to sign, but that I knew was necessary. A modification to my will. In the original will, which I had made years ago with my husband, Michael was the main heir. The house, the savings, everything was going to be for him when I died. But after seeing the signs, after feeling that discomfort in my stomach every time Jessica asked about money, I decided to make a change. A radical change. In the new will, I completely removed Michael. Not as punishment, I explained to Robert, but as protection. If something happened to me, I did not want Jessica and him to benefit from my death. I wanted my assets to go to charities, to organizations that helped senior citizens, to animal shelters, to places that would really do something good with that money. Robert included a copy of that new will in the package of documents. And finally, we prepared something else. A sworn declaration, signed by me and notarized by Robert, where I clearly stated that I was in full possession of my mental faculties, that I was not being coerced or manipulated, and that any attempt to declare me incompetent or force me into a retirement community against my will would be considered elder abuse and would be legally challenged. Robert also attached the results of a recent medical exam that demonstrated I was in perfect physical and mental health. All that package of documents, that entire legal arsenal, I put into a manila envelope. And that envelope, I placed it in the glove compartment of my new car, the very day before Michael came to steal it. At that moment, when I put it there, part of me hoped I would never have to use it. Part of me prayed I was wrong about my son. But another part, the wise part that had learned to be cautious in life, knew it was the right decision. Now, sitting on my sofa, with my eyes swollen from crying, I remembered all of that, and a bitter smile appeared on my face. Michael thought I was a silly old woman. He thought he could just take whatever he wanted and that I would not do anything. He thought I was weak, that I was easily manipulated, that I had given up. But he was very, very wrong. I got up from the sofa. I went to the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water. I drank slowly, feeling the cold rage turn into determination. I picked up my cell phone from the table. I looked at it for a long moment. I knew Michael must be on the highway by now. They were probably heading to Jessica's parents' house, who lived in another state, several hours away. They were probably laughing, celebrating how they had gotten a new car for their trip for free. Jessica was probably telling Michael how easy it had been, how pathetic his mother was. I opened the messaging application. I looked up Michael's contact. My fingers trembled slightly over the screen. Not from fear, not from sadness, but from anticipation. Because I knew what I was about to do. I knew the effect it was going to have. And although part of me, the part that was still a mother, felt pain for what was coming, the other part, the part that deserved respect and dignity, knew it was necessary. I wrote 3 words, just 3 words, short, direct, but loaded with a weight that Michael could not yet imagine. Check the glove compartment, that was all. I did not add explanations, I did not add threats, I did not add emotions, just those 3 words. Check the glove compartment. And I pressed send. The message went out. I saw it mark as delivered, then as read. I imagined Michael on the highway, driving my car, hearing the notification sound on his phone. I imagined him looking at the screen, perhaps with Jessica asking him who it was. I imagined him reading that short message and being confused. Check the glove compartment. What could his mother mean by that? I sat at the kitchen table, phone in hand, waiting. My heart was beating fast, but steady. There was no turning back now. I had cast the first stone. And soon, very soon, Michael was going to understand that he had completely underestimated his mother. That the woman who had given birth to him, who had raised him with love and sacrifice, was also a woman who knew how to defend herself. A woman who was not going to allow anyone, not even her own son, to walk all over her. 5 minutes passed. 10 minutes. Then my phone vibrated. It was Michael. He was calling. I did not answer. I let it ring until it went to voicemail. He called again. And again. 5 calls in a row, all ignored. Because I wanted him to feel what I had felt. The helplessness, the desperation, the slow, terrible understanding that he had lost control of the situation. Finally, he stopped calling, and a text message arrived. Mum, what is this? What does this mean? Call me, please. I did not respond. Another message arrived. Mum, this is a mistake. We can talk. Please. I did not respond to that one either. And then came the message I was waiting for. The message that confirmed to me that he had read everything, that he had seen the documents, that he finally understood the magnitude of what he had done. The message read, Mum, please do not do this. It was a mistake. I am sorry. We can fix this. Do not call the police, please. I read those words over and over. I could feel the panic in every letter, the desperation, the fear. And although a part of me, that maternal part that never completely dies, felt a pang of pain seeing my son like that, the other part, the part that had been betrayed and humiliated, felt satisfied, because now he knew, now he understood that his actions had consequences. I let another 10 minutes pass before responding. I wanted him to sweat. I wanted every second of silence to remind him of what he had done. Finally, I wrote, "Return the car to my house, now." His reply was immediate. "I am 3 hours away. I am turning around right now. I will be there as soon as possible." "I promise, Mum." I put the phone on the table and leaned back in the chair. A strange feeling washed over me. It was not joy. It could not be joy when it involved my own son. But it was something close to justice, to vindication. I had spent my whole life being gentle, being understanding, being the perfect mother who always forgave everything. And look where that got me. To be treated like a nuisance, like something disposable. I went to my room and looked at myself in the mirror. I saw a 65-year-old woman with grey hair, with wrinkles around her eyes, with hands that had worked hard all her life. But I also saw something else. I saw strength. I saw dignity. I saw someone who was not going to give up. My husband always told me I was stronger than I thought. I wish he could see me now. I wish he could see his wife standing up for herself. I think he would be proud. I changed my clothes. I put on a dark green dress, one my husband had given me years ago. I did my hair. I put on a little lipstick. Because if I was going to have this confrontation with my son, I was going to face it with dignity. I was not going to be the broken woman he had left crying on the sofa. I was going to be the woman who had taken control of her own life. While I waited, I called Robert. I needed him to know what was happening. He answered on the second ring. "Evelyn," he said with his calm, professional voice, "what can I do for you?" "Robert, it happened," I told him. "My son took the car. He found the documents. He is coming back now." There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line. Then I heard him sigh. "I am sorry you were right, Evelyn. Nobody wants to be right about something like this." "I know," I replied. "But now I need to know what is next," Robert explained patiently. Technically, Michael had committed a crime. Vehicle theft. Even though he was my son, even though he was family, that did not change the legal facts. I had every right to file a police report, but I also had the right not to do it. The decision was completely mine. The important thing was that now Michael knew I had that power, that I had the tools to hold him accountable. "I want him to come and talk," I told Robert, "but I want you to be available by phone, just in case." "Of course," he replied. "I will have the phone in my hand. Anything, you call me. And Evelyn," he added, before hanging up, "you are a brave woman. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise." His words filled me with a warmth I had not felt all day. "Thank you, Robert. Thank you for everything." I hung up and looked at the clock. Michael had said he was 3 hours away. That meant he would arrive around 5 o'clock in the afternoon. It was barely 2 o'clock. I had time. Time to mentally prepare myself. Time to decide exactly what I was going to tell him. Time to strengthen my resolve. I went to the kitchen and made some tea. Not because I wanted tea, but because I needed to do something with my hands. I needed to keep myself busy. While the water boiled, I thought of all the times I had sacrificed something for Michael. All the sleepless nights when he was a baby. All the times I put his needs before mine. The summers working 2 jobs so I could pay for the music lessons he wanted. The times I defended his bad decisions to others because he was my son, and that was what mothers did. And I thought about Jessica, how she had entered our lives 5 years ago. How from the beginning there was something about her that made me uncomfortable. She was not openly cruel. She was not rude. But there was a coldness in her eyes, a way of evaluating everything in terms of monetary value. I remembered the first time she came to my house, how she walked through the rooms as if she were assessing the property, how she asked how much the house was worth, how much was in my savings accounts, if I had life insurance. My husband had noticed it too. One night, lying in bed, he told me, "Evelyn, there is something about that girl I do not like. I think she is only with Michael for the money." I defended him. I said he was being paranoid, that he was just protective of our son. But he was right. My husband was always a good judge of character, and I should have listened to him. After my husband died, Jessica changed. She became bolder, more direct with her questions about money, more insistent that I should sell the house, move to something smaller, invest the money. And Michael, my own son, began to repeat her words, as if they were a team, as if I were the project they had to solve together. The hours passed slowly. Every time I heard a car pass by on the street, my body tensed. But it was not him. Not yet. At 4:30, my phone vibrated. It was a message from Michael. "I am 20 minutes away. Please, Mom, I need to talk." I did not respond. I just stood up, smoothed my dress, and prepared myself. At 4:50, I heard the familiar engine. My car, my silver car, pulling into the driveway. I looked out the window. Michael was behind the wheel. He looked pale, tired. Jessica was not with him. Interesting. Maybe he had left her somewhere. Or maybe she had not wanted to face the consequences of their actions. Michael turned off the engine and stayed seated inside the car for a moment. I could see his profile from the window. He had his head in his hands. Then he picked up something from the passenger seat. The manila envelope. The documents. Finally, he got out of the car and walked toward the door. Each step seemed heavy. Each step seemed loaded with the weight of what he had done. He rang the doorbell. He did not use his keys. Maybe out of respect, or maybe out of fear. I waited a few seconds before opening. I wanted him to feel the uncertainty. When I finally opened the door, our eyes met. His were red. He had been crying. Good, I thought. Now he knows how it feels. "Mom," he started to say. His voice was shaking. I raised a hand to stop him. "Come inside," I said in a cold voice. "Not out here." He nodded and walked past me. He was carrying the envelope in one hand and my keys in the other. We walked in silence to the living room. I pointed to the sofa. "Sit down." He obeyed like a scolded child. I sat in the armchair opposite him, the same room where I had been crying hours before. But now I was different. Now I was in control. Michael placed the envelope and the keys on the coffee table between us. "I read everything," he finally said. "Mum, I did not know that you had all this prepared." I crossed my arms. "And how does that change anything, Michael? Does the fact that you did not know there were consequences make what you did okay?" He shook his head quickly. "No, no, of course not. What I did was wrong. Very wrong, I know." "Then tell me," I said, leaning forward. "Tell me exactly what was wrong. I want to hear you say it." He swallowed hard. "I took your car without permission. That was theft. And I said horrible things to you. Unforgivable things. About the retirement community. I do not know what I was thinking." "You were not thinking," I interrupted him. "Or rather, you were thinking. You were thinking your mother was a stupid old woman you could manipulate, that you could treat like trash. Michael began to cry openly now. No, Mum, no. I love you. You are my mother. It is just that Jessica said that. He stopped abruptly, realizing what he had just said. Ah, I said, leaning back in my chair. So it was Jessica's idea. Of course, it is always Jessica's idea. Is not it, Michael? And what are you? A 42-year-old man who cannot make his own decisions, who lets his wife control him like a puppet. Michael raised his head sharply. That is not true, Mum. I make my own decisions. Then why did you do this? I asked him. Why did you come to my house? Took my keys? Told me I no longer needed my own car? That I should go to a retirement community? Those were your words, Michael. They came out of your mouth. Not Jessica's. Yours. He wiped the tears with the back of his hand. You are right. You are completely right. I have no excuse. I can only tell you that I am sorry, that I made a terrible mistake, and that it will never, ever happen again. I stood up and walked to the window. From there I could see my silver car in the driveway, my symbol of freedom that I almost lost. A mistake, I repeated without looking at him. You call this a mistake? Mistakes are accidental, Michael. Tripping is a mistake. Forgetting a date is a mistake. But what you did was deliberate, planned. You came here with the intention of taking something that was mine. I turned to face him. And not just the car. You wanted to take away my dignity, my independence, my right to live my own life. You wanted to lock me in a retirement community as if I were an old piece of furniture you wanted to get rid of. Mom, please, he begged. Let me make it up to you. Let me fix this. I will do anything, 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 I repeated. All right, then answer me this. Where is Jessica now? Michael lowered his gaze. I left her at her parents' house. When she read the documents with me, when she saw you could put me in jail, that you had changed your will, she got very angry. She said I was an idiot, that I had ruined everything. Ah, I said, nodding. So she is not upset because you hurt me. She is upset because she lost the chance to inherit my money. Michael did not answer, but his silence said it all. I walked back to my chair and sat down. I need you to understand something, Michael. I raised you alone most of the time. Your father worked 16-hour shifts to give us a decent life. So it was me who fed you, who changed your diapers, who woke up at night when you had nightmares. It was me who went to all your school performances, who helped you with homework, who defended you when other kids bullied you. My voice cracked a little, but I continued. I worked 2 jobs for years so you could go to a good school, so you would have new clothes every season, so you would not lack anything. And when you wanted to study music, even though your father and I thought you should study something more practical, I supported you. I sold jewelry my mother had left me to pay for your classes, because that is what mothers do. They sacrifice everything for their children. Michael was sobbing now. I know, Mum. I know. And I have never thanked you enough. I have been a terrible son. And when your father died, I continued, when I was devastated, barely functioning, trying to figure out how to keep living without the love of my life, where were you? You came to the funeral. You stayed 2 days, and then you went back to your life. You left me alone in this empty house, with my memories and my pain. That is not fair, he protested weakly. I had to work. I had responsibilities. Everyone has responsibilities, Michael. But when the people you love need you, you find a way. And I did not expect you to drop your life for me. I only expected a little compassion. a little consideration, a call once in a while asking how I was. But no, I barely heard from you for 3 months, until yesterday when I called to tell you about my new car. And instead of being happy for me, you came to steal it. He covered his face with his hands. I am a monster, a complete monster. You are not a monster, I told him. You are a man who made bad decisions. A man who allowed himself to be influenced by the wrong person. A man who forgot where he comes from. But you can change, if you really want to. Michael looked up. I do want to. I swear I want to change. Tell me what I have to do. First, I said, you need to decide what is more important to you, your wife or your mother. Because let me make something very clear. As long as you are with Jessica, as long as she has that influence over you, I cannot trust you. I cannot have you in my life knowing that every word you say to me, every action you take, is filtered through her. You cannot ask me that, Michael said. She is my wife. I love her. I love her, I repeated. But you love me, and yet you did this to me. Then maybe your concept of love is distorted, Michael. Maybe you need to rethink what it really means to love someone. Because love is not taking. Love is giving. It is respecting. It is protecting. And you did none of that today. I stood up and took the envelope from the table. These documents are still valid. The will is still in effect. The vehicle theft report can be filed at any time within the next year. For now, I am not going to do anything. But consider it a sword hanging over your head, a reminder that your actions have consequences. Michael stood up as well. Thank you, Mum. Thank you for not calling the police. Thank you for giving me another chance. Do not thank me yet, I told him, because this is your only chance. If you disrespect me again, if you treat me like I am less than a person again, if you try to manipulate or control me in any way, I will use these documents, and I will not only remove you from my will, I will hold you legally accountable for what you did today. He nodded repeatedly. I understand. I promise. It will not happen again. There is one more thing, I added. I want you to go to therapy. You alone. Not couples therapy. Individual therapy. You need to understand why you allowed this to happen. Why you let Jessica convince you to treat your own mother this way. You need to work on yourself before you can be a good son again. I will do it, he said. I will find a therapist tomorrow. Good, I replied. And until you have been to at least 6 sessions, until there can be a real change in you, our relationship will be limited. Occasional phone calls, nothing more. You are not welcome in this house. Not until I can trust that you are not evaluating every object I own, thinking about how much it is worth. Michael stepped closer as if to hug me. I took a step back. Not yet. I need time. I need to heal from what you did to me. And you need to prove to me with actions, not with words, that you have changed. He dropped his arms to his sides. I understand. I will wait as long as you need. I picked up my keys from the table. These are mine. This car is mine. This house is mine. My life is mine. And nobody, hear me well, nobody is going to take any of that from me again. Michael nodded. You are right. And I am sorry I made you feel like you had to defend yourself from your own son. That should never have happened. I walked to the door and opened it. I think it is time for you to leave. Michael walked past me. At the threshold, he stopped. Mum, I really love you. You know that, right? I looked him in the eyes. I want to believe so. But love without respect is not love, Michael. It is just a pretty word people use to justify bad behavior. Show me respect. Show me that you value who I am, and maybe, with time, we can rebuild what was broken today." He walked out of the house. I watched him walk toward the street where he had left a taxi waiting, something he must have called while driving back. Jessica had obviously kept their car. Michael got into the taxi, and before it drove off, he looked at me one last time through the window. There was so much pain on his face, so much regret. Part of me wanted to run to him, hug him, tell him everything was all right. Because that is what mothers do, right? They forgive. They always forgive. But I had forgiven too many things in my life. I had forgiven small slights, Jessica's rude comments, Michael's lack of attention after his father's death. And all that forgiveness had only made them think they could keep treating me badly, that I would always be there, absorbing everything, without complaining. But not anymore. This version of Evelyn was different. This version knew how to set boundaries. I closed the door and leaned against it for a moment. My whole body was trembling, not from fear, not from sadness, but from pure adrenaline. I had just confronted my son. I had just set boundaries I never thought I would have to set. And although it hurt, although every maternal fiber in my body screamed to be softer, I knew I had done the right thing. I walked to the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water. My hands were still shaking slightly. I looked at the clock. It was barely 6 o'clock in the evening. It felt like days had passed since Michael had arrived that morning and taken my keys, but only a few hours had gone by. A few hours that had changed everything. I picked up my phone and called Robert. I needed to tell him how the confrontation had gone. He answered immediately. "Evelyn, tell me you're all right." "I am fine," I replied. "Better than I expected, actually." Michael returned the car. We talked. I set clear boundaries, and he accepted everything. Robert sighed with relief. "I am glad to hear that. You did exactly what you had to do. It must have been difficult." "It was," I admitted. "But it was also necessary. And you know what is strange? I feel stronger now, like I finally recovered something I had lost a long time ago." "That is called dignity," Robert said softly, "and you deserve to feel that way." We talked for a few more minutes. He assured me that the documents were still valid, that I had all the legal power on my side, and that if I ever needed anything, anything at all, I just had to call him. "Thank you, Robert, not just for the legal help, but for believing in me. Always, Evelyn, always." After hanging up, I stood in the middle of the kitchen, not knowing what to do. The house was silent. Too silent. All day I had been so focused on the confrontation, on mentally preparing myself to face Michael, that I had not thought about what would come next. And now, in that silence, reality began to set in. My son had betrayed me. That was not going to change. We might rebuild our relationship eventually, if he really put in the effort, but it would never be the same. That innocence, that blind trust a mother has in her child, had been broken. And although I had won the battle, although I had successfully defended my dignity, I could not deny that I had also lost something. I had lost the image I had of my family, the illusion that, no matter what, my son would always take care of me. I sat down at the kitchen table, and for the first time in hours, allowed the tears to flow freely. But these tears were different. They were not tears of humiliation or desperation like the ones this morning. They were tears of grief. I was mourning the relationship I thought I had with my son, for the family I thought we were, for the mother I used to be, the one who always forgave everything because she believed that was love. I cried for a long time, and when I finally wiped my tears, I felt strangely at peace. Because I was also releasing something. I was releasing the unrealistic expectations, the need to be perfect, the belief that if I was only good enough, loving enough, sacrificial enough, my son would value me. Now I understood that was not my responsibility. I had done my job as a mother. I had raised him well. I had given him love, education, values. If he chose to ignore all that, if he chose to let Jessica turn him into someone I did not recognize, that was his decision, not my failure. I got up and washed my face. Then I went to my room and took out a box from my closet that I had been avoiding since my husband died. It was a box full of letters. Letters he had written to me over the years, on birthdays, anniversaries, or just because. My husband was not very expressive verbally, but he wrote beautifully, and in those letters he always reminded me how strong I was, how capable, how valuable. I took one out at random and read it. It said, "My dearest Evelyn, sometimes I see you doubt yourself and it breaks my heart, because I see what you do not see. I see a woman who can handle anything, who faces every problem with grace and determination, who never gives up. You are stronger than you think, and the day you finally believe it too, the whole world is going to shake. I love you today and always." I held the letter against my chest. "I wish you were here," I whispered. "I wish you could see me now. I think I finally understand what you meant. I think I am finally that strong woman you always saw in me." I carefully returned the letter to the box. Someday I would read them all. But for now, that one was enough. It was the reminder I needed that I was capable, that I always had been. That night, I slept better than I had slept in weeks. I did not have nightmares. I did not wake up crying like so many other nights since my husband had passed away. I slept deeply, completely. And when I woke up the next morning, I felt refreshed. The first rays of sun were coming through my window, and for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful about the future. I got up, showered, dressed in comfortable clothes, and left the house. My silver car was still in the driveway, waiting for me. I looked at it affectionately. It had been through so much in so little time. It had been bought with excitement, stolen with cruelty, and recovered with justice. But there it was, shining under the morning sun, ready to take me wherever I wanted to go. I got in, adjusted the rear-view mirror, and started the engine. The soft purr made me smile. I opened the glove compartment for a moment. The manila envelope was no longer there. I had put it in a safe place inside my house, but the glove compartment now contained something different. A small photo of my husband and me, taken on our last anniversary. Both of us smiling, embracing, happy. I put it there as a reminder that I had known true love, that I had been valued, and that I deserved to continue being valued. I drove out of the driveway and headed out without a specific destination. I just wanted to drive, to feel the freedom to go wherever I wanted, whenever I wanted. I drove through the streets of my neighborhood, then took the highway that led out of the city. The scenery began to change. Houses gave way to trees, trees to open fields. And I kept driving, with the windows slightly open, feeling the wind on my face. After an hour, I reached the cemetery where my husband was buried. I had not planned to come here, but somehow, my hands had turned the wheel in this direction without me realizing it. As if a part of me knew I needed to be here, that I needed to tell him everything that had happened. I parked the car and walked to his grave. The headstone was simple but elegant. It had his name, his dates, and a phrase I had chosen. He loved with all his heart and lived with all his soul. I knelt in front of it and ran my hand over the engraved letters. "Hello, my love," I whispered. "I am sorry I have not come sooner. It has been a difficult few days. And then, kneeling there in front of my husband's grave, I told him everything. I told him about the car, about Michael, about Jessica, about the betrayal, about the documents Robert helped me prepare, about the confrontation, about setting boundaries. I talked and talked, and although I know it sounds ridiculous to talk to a headstone, I swear I could feel his presence. I could feel his approval. I did what you taught me, I finally told him. I did not let myself be trampled. I defended my dignity. And it hurts. It hurts so much because it is my son. But I also feel good. I feel strong. I feel like the woman you always said I was. Tears were rolling down my cheeks, but this time they were calm tears, tears of acceptance. I stayed there sitting next to the grave for almost an hour, just being present, just feeling the connection with the man who had been my partner for 40 years. And when I finally got up to leave, I felt something different. I felt as if he had given me his blessing, as if he had told me it was okay to move on, that it was okay to be strong, that it was okay to put my needs first for once in my life. I drove back home, feeling lighter. But when I arrived, there was a car parked in front of my driveway. I did not recognize it at first. It was a red sedan, something old but well maintained. And then I saw who was sitting on the steps of my porch. Jessica. My daughter-in-law was there, waiting for me. And from the expression on her face, she had not come to apologize. I parked my car in the driveway and stayed inside for a moment, mentally preparing myself. I had not expected this. I had thought that after what happened with Michael, Jessica would keep her distance. But clearly I had underestimated her audacity. I took a deep breath, grabbed my purse, and got out of the car. Jessica got up from the steps as I approached. She was wearing jeans and a coral-colored blouse. Her hair was perfectly styled as always, her makeup impeccable. But there was something in her eyes, something cold and calculating that made me stop a few feet away. "Jessica," I said in a neutral voice. "I did not expect to see you here. We need to talk," she replied. Her voice was tense, controlled. "About what?" I asked, although I already knew the answer. She crossed her arms. "About what you did to Michael. About how you almost put him in jail for a simple misunderstanding. About how you changed your will to punish us for a mistake." "A misunderstanding," I repeated slowly. "Is that what you call theft? A misunderstanding?" Jessica snorted. "Please, Evelyn, he is your son. Family. It was not theft. He just borrowed the car. And you turned it into a huge drama. You called a lawyer. You prepared legal documents. You threatened to call the police. All that for a car." "It was not just about a car," I said, feeling the rage begin to simmer inside me. "It was about respect. It was about dignity. It was because my own son walked into my house, took my keys without permission, and told me I did not need anything anymore, that I should go to a retirement community. Those were his words, not mine." Jessica waved her hand as if shooing a fly. "He was frustrated. He said things he did not mean. We all do when we are stressed." "Ah," I said, taking a step toward her. "So when you are stressed, you also tell your mother to go rot in a nursing home? Because if so, maybe you should work on your stress management." "Do not you dare judge me," Jessica said, pointing a finger at me. "You know nothing about my life, about our problems. Michael and I are going through financial difficulties. We needed that car for the trip. My parents were going to help us with money, but we had to get there. And you, selfishly, denied it to us." I laughed. It was a bitter, humorless laugh. "Selfishly? I was selfish for not letting you steal my car. The car I bought with my money. The car that represents my independence? Tell me, Jessica, in what universe is it selfish to protect what is yours? She pressed her lips together. You are his mother. You are supposed to help him when he is in trouble, not punish him, not threaten him with jail. I helped him for 42 years, I said, raising my voice. I fed him. I clothed him. I paid for his education. I sacrificed my own needs so he would have everything. But apparently that is not enough for you. You want me to keep sacrificing until there is nothing left of me? Until I am just an empty old woman without dignity or rights. You are being dramatic, Jessica said, rolling her eyes. No one is asking you not to have dignity, just to be reasonable, to understand that family helps each other, to share your resources with your only son. Family helps each other, I repeated. Then where was Michael when my husband died? Where were you two when I was devastated, completely broken, not knowing how to keep living? You came to the funeral. You stayed 2 days, and then you disappeared for 3 months. We had our own lives, Jessica protested. Jobs, responsibilities. Exactly, I said. You had your own lives, and I respect that. I never asked you to drop everything for me. But now that I am trying to rebuild my own life, to find some happiness after losing the love of my existence, you show up demanding that I give you everything. My car, my house eventually, my money when I die. Everything is about what I can give you. Jessica moved closer. Her face was red now. You know what your problem is, Evelyn. You are bitter. You are lonely and resentful because your husband died, and now you want everyone to suffer with you. That is why you are pushing Michael away. That is why you changed your will. Because if you cannot be happy, no one else can be either. Her words hit me like slaps. But instead of hurting me, something different happened. Something cleared up in my mind. Jessica was not here for Michael. She was not here because she cared about her husband or our mother-son relationship. She was here for the money, for the inheritance she had just lost. And finally, after 5 years of discomfort around this woman, after 5 years of trying to get along with her for my son's sake, I saw clearly who she was. Get off my property, I said in a calm but firm voice. Jessica blinked. What? I said get off my property. Now. She laughed in disbelief. I am not leaving until we talk about this like adults. We already talked, I replied. And I have heard enough. Now leave before I call the police for trespassing. You would not dare, Jessica said, but there was uncertainty in her voice now. After what happened with Michael, after seeing that I really did prepare legal documents, after understanding that I am not playing games, you still underestimate me. Try to stay and see. I took my phone out of my purse. Jessica looked at me, then at the phone, then back at me. You are crazy, she muttered. Completely crazy. Maybe, I said. Or maybe I am finally sane after years of letting people like you walk all over me. Now go. Now. Jessica looked at me with pure hatred. This is not going to end here, she threatened. Michael is my husband, and I am going to make sure he understands that he has to choose. Either his crazy mother or his real family. Go ahead, I said. Make him choose. Because something tells me that when Michael really thinks about who has been there for him his whole life, and who only showed up when there was something to gain, the decision is going to be easier than you think. Jessica turned on her heel and walked to her car. She got in, started the engine more forcefully than necessary, and sped out of my driveway, screeching the tires. I stood there, watching her drive away. My heart was racing, my hands were trembling, but not from fear, from pure adrenaline. I had just confronted Jessica. I had just told her exactly what I thought without filters, without being the compliant mother-in-law. without trying to keep the peace at any cost. And it felt incredible. I walked into my house and locked the door. Then I collapsed onto the sofa and let out a laugh. It was a laugh of relief, of liberation. For 5 years I had walked on eggshells around Jessica. I had ignored her rude comments. I had pretended not to notice how she assessed my house as if it were already hers. I had smiled when she criticized my cooking, my clothes, my decisions, all because I did not want to cause problems, because I wanted Michael to be happy. But now I realized something fundamental. By trying to keep the peace, by allowing Jessica to disrespect me over and over again without consequences, I had not helped anyone. I had not made Michael happy. I had only taught him that it was okay for his wife to treat his mother badly, that it was acceptable, that I would tolerate everything. And by doing that, I had contributed to the problem. I had allowed this toxic dynamic to grow to the point where my own son felt he could rob me and threaten to put me in a retirement community. That night, sitting in my living room, I made an important decision. No more. No more being compliant. No more putting others' needs before mine to the point of losing myself. No more sacrificing my dignity for the illusion of family harmony. If Michael really wanted to rebuild our relationship, it was going to have to be on my terms, with mutual respect, with clear boundaries. And if that meant our relationship would never be like before, then so be it. Because the relationship we had before was broken anyway. The following days were strange, silent. I did not hear anything from Michael. No messages, no calls. Part of me wondered if Jessica had carried out her threat, if she had forced Michael to choose, and if he had chosen her over me. The idea hurt, but I also knew that if that was the case, if my son really chose a woman who hated me over his own mother, then there was nothing more I could do. I had already done my part. I had set my boundaries. I had defended my dignity. The rest was up to him. I decided to focus on myself, on my own healing, on my own growth. I called my friend Sarah, whom I had not seen in weeks. I told her everything that had happened, and instead of judging me, instead of telling me I should forgive my son unconditionally, because that is how families work, she fully supported me. "Evelyn," she told me over the phone, her voice full of pride, "you did the right thing. What Michael did to you was unforgivable, and I am glad you finally stood up for yourself." Her words filled me with relief. For days I had had this voice in my head, telling me that maybe I had been too harsh, that maybe I should have been more understanding. But Sarah reminded me that being understanding does not mean being a doormat. We agreed to meet for lunch the next day. It had been so long since I had gone out, since I had socialized, that I had almost forgotten what it felt like to have a life outside of my family problems. The next day, I drove my silver car to the restaurant where we had planned to meet. Sarah was already there, sitting at a table by the window. When she saw me walk in, she stood up and hugged me tightly. "Look at you," she said, stepping back to assess me. "You look different, stronger." "I am," I replied. "Or at least I am trying to be." We sat down and ordered. And for the next 2 hours, we talked, really talked, not just about Michael and the family drama, but about everything, about our lives, about our dreams, about what we wanted to do with the time we had left. Sarah was a widow too. Her husband had died 5 years ago, and she told me how the first few years were terrible, how lost she felt, how she did not know who she was without her husband. But eventually, she told me, I found a new version of myself, a version that enjoys things I had never tried before, that travels alone, that takes painting classes, that does not need anyone's approval to be happy. Her words resonated deeply with me, because that was exactly what I was trying to do. find a new version of myself, a version that existed independently of being a wife or mother, a version that had its own interests, its own dreams, its own identity. Sarah, I said, I need to ask you something. Go ahead, she replied. How do you get over the feeling of guilt, of feeling like you are betraying your husband's memory by moving on, by being happy without him? Sarah took my hand across the table. Evelyn, our husbands loved us, and because they loved us, the last thing they would have wanted is to see us frozen in time, living like ghosts in our own lives. My husband told me before he died, he literally made me promise him that I was going to keep living, that I was going to find joy again, that I was not going to waste the years I had left crying over the ones we lost together. And your husband, I am sure, would have told you the same thing. She was right. My husband had told me. In those letters I kept in the box, in conversations we had about death, about what we wanted for the other if one of us went first. He had made me promise that I would not give up, that I would keep going, and I was keeping that promise. Finally. Thank you, Sarah. I needed to hear that. You are welcome, she replied, smiling. And now, let us talk about more exciting things. What are you going to do with all this new freedom you have? The question took me by surprise. I had not really thought about it. I had been so focused on surviving the drama with Michael that I had not considered what would come next. What did I want to do now that I had a car? Now that I had mobility? Now that I had my life back? I do not know, I admitted. I have never been good at planning things just for me. Sarah smiled. Then let us start now. What is something you always wanted to do but never did because you were too busy taking care of others? I thought for a moment. I always wanted to see the ocean at sunrise. My husband and I talked about taking a trip to the coast someday, but there was always something. Work, responsibilities, Michael. And then he got sick and we ran out of time. Sarah hit the table with her palm. Perfect. Then that is what you are going to do. You are going to drive to the coast. You are going to watch the sunrise over the ocean. And you are going to do it for yourself. Not as a tribute to your husband. Not because you feel you should, but because you want to. Because you deserve to experience something beautiful. The idea scared and excited me at the same time. It was a trip of almost 5 hours to the nearest coast. I would have to drive alone, possibly stay in a motel, do everything myself, without anyone to lean on. But I also realized something. That was exactly what I needed. I needed to prove to myself that I could, that I was capable, that I did not need Michael to survive, that I did not need anyone. I am going to do it, I said, feeling more sure with every word. I am going to the coast, this weekend. Sarah applauded. That is my friend. And I want pictures. I want proof that Evelyn is finally living for herself. We left the restaurant, and I felt lighter than I had in months. Sarah hugged me before we parted. I am proud of you, she whispered, for standing up for yourself, for setting boundaries, for choosing yourself. Her words stayed with me all the way home. When I arrived, I saw I had a message on my phone. It was from Michael, the first message I had received from him since our confrontation days ago. Mum, I know you said you needed space, and I am respecting that. But I need you to know that I found a therapist. I already had my first session. It was difficult, but necessary. I am working on myself. I am trying to understand how I let things get so far. I do not expect your immediate forgiveness. I just want you to know that I am trying. I love you. I read the message several times. Part of me wanted to reply immediately, tell him I was proud of him, that I was glad he was seeking help. But another part, The wise part that had learned to be cautious told me to wait, that words were easy, that sustained actions over time were what mattered. So I just put the phone away without responding, not because I wanted to punish him, but because I needed more than a message. I needed to see real change. That night, I started planning my trip to the coast. I searched for motels online. I found a small, cozy one with an ocean view. The pictures showed a simple but clean place, perfect for what I needed. A single room cost $75 a night. I could afford it. I had the savings, and for the first time in my life, I was going to spend money on myself without feeling guilty. I booked the room for Friday night. That would give me time to arrive before sunset, rest, and then wake up early to see the sunrise. When I confirmed the reservation, I felt an emotion I had not felt in years. Anticipation, expectation, pure joy at the idea of doing something just for myself, something no one could take away from me, something that was completely mine. I spent the days before the trip preparing. I checked my car. I made sure everything was in order. I filled the gas tank. I packed a small suitcase with comfortable clothes, a sweater because the mornings on the coast could be cold, and my old camera. I wanted to capture that moment. I wanted proof that Evelyn, at 65, had found the courage to live again. On Friday morning, I woke up early, nervous, but excited. I loaded my suitcase into the car. I checked that I had my charged phone, my license, my credit card, everything I needed. I stood in front of my house for a moment, looking at it. This house that had been my home for so many years. This house full of memories, good and bad. And I realized I no longer felt trapped there. It was no longer a mausoleum. It was simply a house, a place where I lived. But it was not what defined me. I got into my silver car, adjusted the seat, started the engine, and pulled out of my driveway. The sun was just beginning to rise on the horizon. I had a long drive ahead of me, 5 hours on the road. But for the first time in a long time, that did not scare me. It excited me. I drove through the streets of my town. Then I took the interstate that would take me to the coast. Traffic was light at that hour. The highway stretched out before me like a promise. I put on some music on the radio, old songs my husband and I used to listen to, and instead of crying, I smiled. Because I was not running away from the memories. I was taking them with me. I was honoring them by living. During the trip, I stopped at a gas station. While filling the tank, an older woman approached. She was traveling alone too. We smiled at each other with that complicity that only women of a certain age understand. She asked me where I was going. To the coast, I replied, to see the sunrise. How lovely, she said. I am traveling alone too. It is liberating, is not it? It is, I admitted, more than I expected. We exchanged a few more words before going our separate ways. But that brief encounter left me thinking, how many women like me were out there? Widows, mothers, grandmothers, women who had spent decades taking care of others and who were finally learning to take care of themselves. Women who were reclaiming their independence, their dignity, their right to exist beyond the roles society had assigned them. I was not alone in this, and that realization filled me with strength. I arrived at the motel around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The place was exactly as it looked in the photos. Small, quaint, located right on the beach. The receptionist, a young man named Alex, greeted me with a warm smile. "Welcome, Mrs. Miller. Your room is ready. It has a beautiful ocean view." I took the keys and went up to my room. When I opened the door, the smell of the sea hit me immediately. The windows were open, and the sea breeze came in freely. I dropped my suitcase on the floor and walked to the balcony. The view was stunning. The ocean stretched out infinitely before me. The waves broke softly on the shore. Some birds flew in circles over the water, and the sun, beginning its descent toward the horizon, painted everything in shades of orange and pink. I stood there, hands on the balcony railing, just breathing, just being, and I felt something I had not felt in months. Peace. True, deep peace. That night I ate dinner alone in a small restaurant near the motel. I ordered fresh fish and a glass of white wine. The waiter, noticing I was alone, asked if I was expecting anyone. No, I replied. I am alone, and it is perfect that way. He nodded approvingly. Sometimes the best company is yourself, he said. He was right. Throughout dinner, I did not feel lonely. I felt complete. I enjoyed every bite, every sip, without having to worry about anyone else, without having to make sure others were comfortable first. After dinner, I walked along the beach. The moon was almost full and illuminated the water with a silvery glow. My bare feet sank into the cold sand. The sound of the waves was hypnotic. I walked for almost an hour, just thinking about everything that had happened, about my husband, about Michael, about Jessica, about the woman I had been and the woman I was becoming. And I realized something important. I was not angry anymore. I did not hold resentment. I had set my boundaries. I had defended my dignity. And now I could let go. I could let go of the rage, because clinging to it only hurt me. I returned to the motel around 10 o'clock at night. I set my alarm for 5 o'clock in the morning. I wanted to be on the beach before the sun rose. I lay down in the motel bed, listening to the distant sound of the waves, and slept deeply. I did not have nightmares. I did not wake up crying. I just slept. And when the alarm rang at 5, I got up feeling rested, refreshed. I quickly got dressed in warm clothes. I took my camera and left the motel. The beach was deserted at that hour. The sky was still dark, but I could see the first touch of light on the horizon. I found a spot on the sand. I sat down, and I waited. And slowly, gradually, the sky began to change. First from black to deep navy blue, then to purple, then to pink. And finally the sun began to emerge from the ocean, a ball of orange fire that transformed everything in its path. It was the most beautiful spectacle I had ever seen. Tears rolled down my cheeks, but they were tears of joy, of gratitude, of being alive, of having made it here despite everything. I took photos, but I knew no camera could do justice to what I was witnessing. This was something that had to be felt, that had to be lived. I stayed sitting there until the sun was completely up, until the day had officially begun. Then, I took my phone and took a picture of the ocean. I sent it to Sarah with a message. I did it. I am here, and it is perfect. Her reply came minutes later. I knew you would. I am so proud of you, friend. Then, after thinking about it for a moment, I opened my conversation with Michael. He had sent another message the day before. Mum, I had my third therapy session today. We are working on how I set the wrong priorities, on how I let money and Jessica's opinions be more important than your well-being. I am still working. I am still trying. I looked at that message for a long time. Then I wrote my answer. Michael, I am at the coast. I came to see the sunrise. Something your father and I always wanted to do together. I did it alone. And while I was sitting on the sand, watching the sun come up, I realized something. I forgive you. Not because what you did is okay, but because clinging to the rage only hurts me. But you need to understand something. Forgiving does not mean forgetting. Our relationship has changed, And if we want to rebuild it, it is going to take time, a lot of time. And it is going to require you to prove with actions, not just with words, that you have truly changed. In the meantime, I am going to keep living my life. I am going to keep being happy. Because I deserve that. I love you. But now I also love myself. And that is something I am never going to negotiate again. I pressed send and felt a weight lift from my shoulders. I did not know what would happen with Michael and me. I did not know if we would ever have a close relationship again, but I knew I had done the right thing. I had set my terms. I had put my needs on the same level as others. And that was something revolutionary for me. I stayed on the beach until 8 o'clock in the morning. Then I went back to the motel, had breakfast, packed my things, and began the trip back home. But I was not the same woman who had made that trip the day before. I was someone different, someone stronger, someone who had learned that it is okay to defend yourself, that it is okay to set boundaries, that it is okay to choose yourself. When I arrived home that afternoon, my phone had a message from Michael. "Thank you, Mum. Thank you for giving me another chance. I am going to prove to you that I can change. And about Jessica. We need to talk. There are things I need to figure out." I read the message and smiled. I did not know exactly what it meant, but it sounded promising. It sounded like Michael was finally waking up, finally seeing things clearly. But even if he did not, even if he chose to stay with Jessica and continue down that path, I would be fine. Because I had discovered something fundamental. I did not need my son's approval to be happy. I did not need anyone to validate me. I was enough. I had always been enough. That night, sitting in my living room with a cup of tea, I looked around my house. The furniture my husband and I had chosen together, the photos on the walls, the memories of a life well lived. And instead of feeling sadness for what I had lost, I felt gratitude for what I had had, and excitement for what was still to come. Because this was not the end of my story. This was my story beginning a new chapter. A chapter where I was the protagonist, where I made the decisions, where I lived life on my own terms. Sometimes justice does not come as a great revenge. Sometimes it comes quietly. It comes in the form of established boundaries, of recovered dignity, of learning to value yourself enough not to let anyone treat you as less than you are. My son took my car, thinking I would not do anything, thinking I was weak, thinking he could walk all over me. And what he found in that glove compartment was not just legal documents, it was the truth. The truth that his mother was stronger than he imagined, that there were consequences, that respect is not optional, it is necessary. And now, as I drive my silver car through the streets of my town, with the wind in my hair and the sun on my face, I know I made the right decisions. I defended my dignity. I set my boundaries. And I got my life back. If this story touched your heart, if it made you reflect on the respect you deserve, leave me a like. Subscribe to the channel. And tell me in the comments, what would you have done in my place? Because we all deserve to be treated with dignity, no matter our age, no matter anything. Thank you for listening to my story. This is Evelyn. And finally, after 65 years, I learned to live for myself.